Okay, this morning we're going to work on a little project, make a nice birthday present actually. It's the old saying, I've traveled around the sun so many times, and of course you'll be able to cut the sign out, and you're going to have a set of plate letters, and you can slide them in as it applies. The person can, whoever is having the birthday, of course. If a person's 70 years old, well, they just put a 70 in there. It means they've gone around the sun 70 times on this planet Earth. And we're going to cut that out. And then, as I said, we also have these number plates, which we're going to use, so we can easily change them if we have to. You're going to have two of each of these number plates you're going to cut out, and one of the extra number 1 down there, just in case you have somebody who's 110 or older, or maybe a little bit younger, be able to put that in. And I'm going to take you through the steps on putting this thing together. We're going to cut the whole thing out of a piece of birch plywood, 1/4-inch birch plywood, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. So why don't we get started on this project before we start on our next journey around the sun. Okay, as I mentioned, we're going to cut this pattern out to be the basis of the sign itself, and we're going to cut it out of 1/4-inch birch plywood, which I've cut down to the size of 8.5 by 11. You can regulate the size that you want, of course. You can even resize this to make the pattern a little bit smaller if you'd like. Okay, so what we're going to first of all do is tape up the back plate here, or where the sign is actually going to be. And we're going to use some masking tape to do that. Okay, we're going to use this painter's tape. You can use the green one like this, or the yellow one, or regular masking tape, whatever is convenient for you. A good idea to put this down on the board for a couple of reasons. One, it allows the blade to cut smoother through the wood. It tends to lubricate the blade. Also, it gives you a surface to stick your pattern on, and you're going to want to take that pattern off later on. And you could put it right on the wood and then use various materials to remove it, but it becomes a pain in the neck. And of course there are other ways of doing this too. I'm not saying this is the only way. It's the way I always do it, and it's always worked for me. Also, when I glue my pattern down, I like to do it with a glue stick. That avoids the problem of fumes blowing around, which could happen with the aerosol sprays and getting into my lungs. So you might want to reconsider that yourself too. Okay, I've cut my pattern out now, and I'm going to use my glue stick. I use a Staples brand, but you can use any glue stick you like. And if you prefer, of course, using a aerosol spray, that's fine too, or whatever method you've been using to get the back of this thing nice and sticky. This I find to be the easiest method for me, and as I mentioned too, it eliminates that aerosol spray in the air, which could be somewhat dangerous over time. This stick is just about done. I think I've just about had the last of it here. I want to use it up and put the last bit on here. Okay. And you take your board like that, whichever way you want to do it. I like to do it with the overlap going toward the top. That way when I peel it off later, all the tape comes together instead of coming off in pieces. Put that right down on there. Now, as I mentioned, I'm doing this with 1/4-inch birch plywood, but there's no reason why you couldn't do it with some other wood. I mean, you might like to make it look fancier, maybe some cherry or something like that. Make it a little bit thicker if you like. Could even do a backing board for this if you like. But trying to make this a very simple project, and we'll do it this way for now. Alright, I think we can dispose of the staple stick. Okay, we're over here at the drill press now, and what I want to do is drill some entry holes. Okay, I've drilled out all of the entry holes for the letters, so we can cut those out. And there was also a couple of side decorations that I've got here, and I drilled entry holes to cut those out too. We're not going to cut out that little rectangle in the middle. That's just a representation of where the frame is going to go, where the letter number plates you can slide in and out later on down the road. And we'll eventually make a base for this to stand on too. Okay, so let's take this over to the scroll saw now, and we'll cut these letters out very carefully and finish up the front part of the sign. Okay, we're over at the scroll saw now, and what we want to do here is cut out the letters. So I've got a number 5 reverse tooth blade in here. We're gonna clamp this down and very slowly cut out around the outside of the letters and make our indentation of letters that we'll be able to read later on down the road. Here we go. Okay, finished off all the letters. Now, what we want to do is, I've got these little side panels I'm going to cut out. Now these are optional. If you don't want to use these, you don't have to. It's up to you, of course. But they're fairly simple to cut out, so why not add another decoration? There, a little decorative piece has been cut out, and that completes all our internal cuts. Now, I've decided I'm going to do a backing board for this also, which means I'm going to need a solid piece very similar to this part here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack cut this. I'm going to put another piece of wood underneath and then cut around the outside so that it matches nicely. Okay, to add a backing board here, I cut another piece of birch ply, 1/4 inch, matched it up with the back. It's 11 inches by about 6.5 inches long, which will give me enough room to cut around there. Now the backing board will make the letters stand out a little better because we're going to paint that backing board a different color. And also it makes the whole sign a lot sturdier. Now to do this, what I'm going to do is match up these two boards like that. I'm going to take some packing tape. And put the packing tape along the top. Like that. This is just so it'll hold them together when I do my stack cut. Make sure it's held together. Doesn't come apart on me. I'm using packing tape because you can see through it. I don't have to redo the drawing at all. Okay. So we've got our blank ready to go. We can do our stack cut with this. So I'll bring it over to the scroll saw and work on that. Okay, now that we've got our sandwich put together here, we're going to do our stack cut. Cutting out both pieces at one time. We'll have the front plate plus the back plate. Okay, we've made our cuts all the way across. You notice that the turning point here on the ends, I don't keep a sharp point. I like to get a little bit of a curve there. Same on the other side too. So you can do what you want, of course, but that's what I prefer doing. All right, we've got our front plate and we got our backing plate now, which we're going to paint a different color so that these letters really stand out later on down the road. Okay, let's take this back to the bench and peel it off and see what it looks like. Okay, we should be able to peel this off very nicely now. Starting from the bottom. Just pull it straight up as best you can. Should come on very nicely. There it goes. Okay, I think we've got a nice cut here. And we also have a backing board for it as well. Now, if the when you were cutting, if you happen to go a little bit crooked there, you can always put this on the sander, go around the disc sander and even it out a little bit. Generally, it doesn't look too bad. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is cut out these number plates that we can insert in a little track we're going to make. And to do that, I cut appropriately sized birch ply again and tape them together so we can do a stack cut on this, save ourselves a little bit of time. When we cut these out, we'll have two sets of numbers which we'll be able to use with our sign display. Because you want to take this, of course, and get a new glue stick and really sop it up pretty good. Make sure it's good and sticky all around. And save yourself some cutting later. We'll put this right along the bottom. Now what I'll probably do is first of all cut out the numbers, and then later go and cut the blocks out on the table saw or on the chop saw. Okay, we're back at the scroll saw, and now what we want to do is cut out these numbers into little plates. We'll cut out all the interiors first. I'm going to speed this up probably and shorten it up, but I'll get it started anyways. Alright, there's 1/2 of the 0. And we'll cut the other half. And we'll do the rest of the letters too, and we'll come back when we get this all finished. Okay, we've got the last number cut out, and what we want to do now is cut out the blanks themselves. Now you could cut them on the scroll saw here, which will take a little bit of time. So what I'm going to do is go over to the chop saw and use that to cut out each of the tablets individually. Got to be very careful if you're going to do that, of course. Could also do them on table saw if you wanted to. You just want to get your blade edged up along the sides and cut them off very neatly. Okay, we're at the chop saw now. What we want to do is line these up as carefully as possible with the edge of the blade. Okay, like that. And keeping your hand away from the blade, of course. We'll just do our cuts here. Now, when you do your cut, the tape that was holding on the end is no longer there. So you have to be aware of that. Move this over, line it up on the other side of the plate, and just carefully cut it out. Okay. Okay, I like to use the bench sander to take these number plates and round the edges over on them, or while the bench sander is spinning. Just move these back and forth in that fashion around the edges, and you get a nice smooth finish on each plate. You could also sand down the actual faces too if you want to do that. But it's fairly easy to do. I'll just do a couple of them here to show you how this works. Okay, we don't have phyllo vision here, but it does feel a lot better around the edges. Just got to be a little bit careful, make sure the parts are sanded around smoothly, and watch your fingers when you're doing it. Should be okay. I'm going to do the rest of these and we'll get them ready for the final project here. Okay, I got the edges rounded over on all these number plates. What I'd like to do now is run them over my mop here, sanding mop, round over the edges on the inside and all around the edges, make them nice and smooth as well. Okay, alright, that feels a lot better now. And also, you can do this if you don't have a sanding mop. You can do this with a regular piece of sandpaper, of course, but sanding mop makes it a little bit faster. Okay, you also want to cut out the frame that's going to hold the number plates. And the frame is going to be placed right within the inside area on the sign here. So what we do is cut this out on the scroll saw and cut a couple of strips that'll fit along the top and the bottom sections, so that we'll have like a sliding track we can slide the letter plates into later on down the road after we stick it all on. Okay, so we're going to go cut this out on the scroll saw and get back here and start to put this thing together. Alright, I've cut out the frame and a little strip of wood that acts as a riser for it, and I've glued it to the bottom of the frame. Now what we're going to do is let this dry, use the weight of the glue bottle to let it settle nicely, and then we're going to glue this on the front of our sign so we'll be able to have a place to put our letters. Okay, we'll leave it at that point for now. Okay, after we've sanded down the front board and the back board and then painted it, and I used a sort of a maroon, reddish maroon paint for a background, what we're going to do now is take these and put them together like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to glue the back of this, turn it over, and take some super glue, because you got some paint on there. I don't know if wood glue would really hold it very well. So we take this super glue and spread it around here randomly, various points. It's enough so you can be assured that it's going to hold in place. Top and bottom, along the edges here, etc. And then we just take this and put it right down on top of this board and line them up and just let them dry for a while, and we'll see what happens. We'll put the other front part on after this. We'll leave that glue bottle on there and let it sit there for a while, and that should dry pretty good. Okay, if you glued the back board on using a super glue, it should be pretty stable about now after it dries. And what we're going to do now is take this little frame that we made, and we're not going to measure it or anything, we're just going to eyeball it. Make sure it's on center here between the two hooks on either side. And we're going to glue just the bottom end here. I think I'm going to go with just one piece. That leaves the top of the frame open so you can slide your letters in later on. You'll see how that works. So let's put a little bit of glue on here and stick it down. Okay, so I put some glue on the back of the bottom edge I'm going to turn this around like that. I'm doing this while holding the camera with one hand, so it's going to be kind of difficult. But I think it'll be alright. And just sort of line it up roughly on center. And then we're going to take a piece of 1/4 inch plywood and put it on the other end to support it. Okay, so that'll hold it up while it dries on there. And if you place it just a little bit above the times, try to get it straight as possible. It should look pretty good when we remove the other piece. Alright, we're going to just let that sit there and dry, and then we'll just try inserting the letters, the numbers, and we'll see how they work. Should work pretty good. Okay, the frame seems to be pretty nicely in place. The next thing I want to do is put a base, put the sign on a base, I should say. So what I did was I cut this piece of plywood, rounded over the edges so it's nice and smooth. And that's about 2 inches by about 8 or 10 inches. You have to measure it by the bottom of the sign itself, of course. What we're going to do is put some glue on the bottom here. And we're going to stand it up like that and glue it down so we got a base there. That'll hold the sign from falling over and makes it a little more secure. So I'm going to do that, and I'll come back when I got it on there. Okay, I put some glue on the bottom of that sign and attached it to the piece of plywood that I'm going to use for a base. Clamped it on both sides. That should be good enough to hold it there for a while. Leave it there for a couple of hours, and it'll be pretty solid. And then we'll see what we can do to finish off the lettering. I think I might have to, on the lettering, might have to go with, might have to go with painting them in order to make the numbers stand out. I think it might be better because the wood tends to blend in with the backwood, and the red in the background is kind of nice. So if we paint all of these a maroon color, I think it might look pretty good. So I might end up doing that. Okay, as you can see, I finished the project here, standing up nicely on the little frame I made. And I did decide to go with coloring the letters. I think it makes them stand out a little better. And you can use this as a nice little birthday gift for someone, I suppose. And they could change it each year if they wanted to. Could even hang it on the wall, I suppose, instead of putting a base on it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little project. And if you did, click on the thumbs up sign down below there. And be sure to subscribe to the channel too if you haven't yet. And you'll be able to see what other little gems I come up with down the road. If you'd like a pattern for this, all the patterns that I've used to put it together, you can click the link down below, and it'll take you to my site. I've got it up there for purposes of downloading on the Etsy site. Well, thank you for watching.